ಮುಖಗವಸನ್ನ ಧರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಹೋದಾಗಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಆ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಅಂತರವನ್ನ ಕಾಪಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಈ ಕೋವಿಡ್ ದುರಂತ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದರ ಕೊಂಡಿಯನ್ನ ಕತ್ತರಿಸುವ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲಿದೆ. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು Now I'll commence the class. I'll share the screen. Okay. Is the slide visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I was dealing with capitalism. I have to add one more point here. Okay, I have described what is capitalism and what are the other names given to capitalism. Okay, the one point which I want to add here is there are two types of capitalism. Okay, people are getting in. Okay, there are two types of capitalism. One is the old one, which was there earlier, laissez-faire capitalism. Laissez-faire means everything is left to the market. Okay, government never interfere in the operation of the market. Okay, it is totally left to the market. What to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce, all these questions are answered by the market. Market forces, demand, supply, and price. Okay, then what is the role of the government? It is only maintaining the sovereignty of the state. That means protect the country, protect the state from external aggression. If the neighboring countries or some other countries, they wage a war, they start a war with your country, then it is the responsibility of the government to protect the country. Otherwise, everything is left to the market forces. That is laissez-faire capitalism. But these days, it is reducing. Okay, the modern regulated or mixed capitalism. Okay, mixed, almost similar to mixed economy. So the market economy thrives, but it is regulated by the government. So it is the regulated or mixed capitalism. Okay, the example for old laissez-faire capitalism are Germany and UK. Yesterday I had mentioned USA and UK. Now USA comes under this regulated or mixed capitalism, but Germany, UK, still they are under old laissez-faire capitalism. Is it clear? Okay. Now, the other things I have already explained yesterday. Okay, profit motive. Then importance of price system, class conflict, then competition, okay, and then control with risks. So I had stopped at this point. I'll continue from here today. Okay. So next one is the socialism. What is the meaning of socialism? An economic system in which the means of production, land, capital, everything, okay, the means of production are owned and operated by the state. So land is owned by the government, So individuals cannot own the land, right? And business, it is owned by the government. So individuals, they don't have the freedom, economic freedom to control the business, okay? All decisions regarding production and distribution are taken by the central planning authority, okay? There would be a central planning authority, and it is the responsibility of the planning authority to decide what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. So all the decisions are taken by the planning authority or the central government. Hence, it is also called as planned economy, because everything is planned by the central authority. So it is also referred to as planned economy or command economy. So the central government or the planning authority, central planning authority, it commands, it controls the entire economy. So it is a command economy or it is a planned economy. Examples for socialism at present are China, Cuba, Vietnam, North Korea. Okay, here earlier USSR, Russia was also part of socialism, but when Gorbachev became the president of Russia, he brought in perestroika. That means liberalization of the economy. So since Gorbachev brought in the perestroika, okay, then Russia is no more a socialistic country. What are the main features of socialism? One, social ownership of means of production. As I mentioned earlier, all the factors of production are owned by the society or the government. Okay, all businesses, industries are nationalized. Okay, everything is nationalized, everything belongs to the government. No private enterprises. Okay, in these countries, private enterprises are not allowed, they are not encouraged. State will be the landlord, capitalist, and the entrepreneur. So all the things are rolled into one. The government itself is the owner of the land, landlord, owner of the capital, capitalist, owner of the enterprises, entrepreneur. So everything is the government. In agriculture, cooperatives may be permitted. Actually, in China and many other countries, socialistic countries, it is the cooperatives which look after agriculture. Economic equality. Living on earned income is discouraged. Okay, any person cannot live on unearned income. ತಾನು ಗಳಿಸದೇ ಇರುವ ಆದಾಯದ ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾರು ಜೀವನ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. No one can live on the income which is not earned by him. For example, suppose your father was very rich. Okay, he has constructed maybe an apartment and he has given the apartments on either lease or for rent. Okay, now because you are his successor, you don't have to work at all, because you get about 1.5 to 2 lakh rupees or 3 lakh rupees as rent every month. So what is the necessity for you to work? So Aisha Rami Jivana Nadasbodu. But it is possible in capitalism, not in socialism. Okay. Did you get the point? Living on unearned income, which is not earned by the individual, is discouraged. It is not allowed. Remuneration for work is according to the nature of work. Okay, so since all the apartments, all the businesses, everything is owned by the government, if you want to lead a comfortable life, then you have to work. Okay, and your salary, your income will be decided based on the type of work you do. Okay, there also, if you're a doctor, maybe your salary is a bit higher. If you're a scavenger, then your income would be less, like that. Okay, it varies. Then fourth one is equality of opportunity. So everyone gets equal opportunity. Since no one is very rich, no one is very poor, everything is owned by the government, okay, there is equal opportunity. Every person has equal opportunity to receive education or training according to his aptitude. Nimma manodharma hegide, adra prakara, you can get the education. Based on your aptitude, okay, you'll get the education or training so that he can enter a profession of his choice. It is not necessary that a doctor's son will become doctor. No. A doctor's son can become maybe a sweeper in some office, and a sweeper's son can become a doctor. Okay, anybody can become anything. So there is equal opportunity in socialism. Then central planning, I have mentioned this earlier. The allocation of productive resources of the community will be determined according to the direction of a central authority. So which resource to be allocated to which enterprise, which area is decided by the central authority. Okay, social welfare and social security. So social welfare consideration guides production activity. That means the entire society should feel that welfare. Okay, entire society should get all the benefits. So that guides, that decides the production activity in the economy rather than private profit. So private profit is not given importance there. It is ruled out. So it is the social welfare. Benefit to the entire society is the goal here. Social welfare and social security. Then classless society. There is no super rich, very poor. No. No distinction as rich and poor or haves and have-nots. Ullavaru, ilde iroru anno vyathyasa irodilla. Then the third one is mixed economy, an economic system in which both public and private institutions exercise economic control. So capitalism, it is the private institutions. In socialism, it is the public institutions. But in mixed economy, both public enterprises and the private institutions, they control the economy. The public sector functions as a socialistic economy. So it works as a socialistic economy, the public sector, that is all the industries, all the setups, all the business, okay, they're all function as socialistic economy, and the private sector as a free enterprise economy. Both have sorry. Individuals and firms possess the freedom to private property. So individuals can own the property, earn profit, to take up any occupation, to produce, to distribute, and to consume. So individuals have all these freedom, which are the characteristics of capitalism. But if these freedoms affect public welfare adversely, if the private concerns, private enterprises, they behave as if they don't care for the social welfare and they concentrate only on private profit, the profit they earn, then they are regulated and controlled by the state. Okay, in that case, if the private enterprises, they just try to earn profit and neglect the social welfare, then the state or the government steps in and regulates the economy. Okay. Example, India, since beginning, sorry, India is mixed economy. USA, earlier it was laissez-faire economy, but now it is mixed capitalism. Okay. Main features of mixed economy: coexistence of public and private sectors. So both public sector, the government sector, and the private sector, they coexist. Okay, they go hand in hand. So most strategically, sorry, strategically. Now, what is strategy? It is when the word was coined, actually it referred to the plan you make in the battlefield. Okay, the plan you make in the battlefield was called as strategy. Okay, for example, in Mahabharata, when Arjuna has gone somewhere to fight Jayadratha, okay, the Kauravas, Bhishma, he forms Chakravyuha. I think you all have heard about Chakravyuha, and the only person who knows how to get into Chakravyuha, how to break that Chakravyuha and get into the military formation was Abhimanyu. But he told that I know how to get in, but I don't know how to come out of Chakravyuha. But the Pandavas, they say, Abhimanyu, don't worry, you enter, we'll also enter just behind you, and then we'll totally destroy the Kaurava army. But you know the story, what happened. Okay, so that formation of Chakravyuha was a strategy. Earlier, it was used only for the plans made in the battlefield, but today, that word strategy is used in all the fields where very important plan is prepared. So most strategically and nationally important sectors of the economy, like defense equipment, production of defense equipment, atomic energy, okay, they are all controlled by public, are reserved for public sector. But of late, recently, even manufacturing of defense equipment is being privatized. Okay, they are planning for privatization of production of defense equipment. Other sectors are operated as private sector. Okay, public sector, social welfare is the motive, but private sector, profit is the motive. So both social welfare and profit motive, they coexist in mixed economy. Then second feature of mixed economy is role of price system and government directives. Again, both the market forces, including price system, and the government regulations, both operate simultaneously. Okay, public sector, it is government directives. Private sector, it is the price mechanism. Then economic planning. Planning will direct the relative roles of public and private sectors and their respective jurisdictions. What it means is, earlier we had planning commission. Okay, the planning commission was giving the general directions, what needs to be achieved in the economy in different sectors of the economy, in health, in industries, in service sector, and so on. So the broad guidelines. Now it is the Niti Aayog which gives the framework, but they don't tell what each person has to do. Okay, so planning will direct relative roles of public and private sectors, what the public sector enterprises have to do, what private sector enterprises have to do, and their respective jurisdictions. Jurisdiction is the boundary. Okay, so the boundary within which private sectors have to operate, the boundary within which the public sector or the government sector has to operate. So that is in mixed economy. Okay. Then government regulation and control of private sector. So to see that the private sector functions in the interest of the nation rather than exclusively with profit motive. So this is to see that the ultimate goal of private sector is not just profit making. They should earn profit, but at the same time, they should also keep the interest of the nation in their mind when they operate their enterprises. Okay. Regulation by the government to control monopolies. Monopoly is eka swamatya. That means one industry or one enterprise controlling the entire market. It should not happen. If one industry or one enterprise controls the entire market, then they will definitely exploit the consumers. It should not happen. So they will try to control the monopolies, the government. Then it is done through licensing system. How they control the monopolies? Through licensing. If you want to run the business, if you want to take up any enterprise, you have to get the license from the government. If any enterprise doesn't follow the government regulations, government directives, then their license may be cancelled. Then consumers' sovereignty protected. Sarvabhaumatva. Sovereignty is Sarvabhaumatva. That means you are the king. Okay. Consumers' sovereignty protected. It is the consumer who is the king in the market. At times of difficulty for the consumers, if the consumers find it difficult, okay, in the market, government may help through price control. The government may try to control the price. And rationing of commodities. Rationing of commodities, you know, these days, during the pandemic, corona pandemic, they are distributing extensively. They are distributing rice, wheat, then tur gram, okay. So all those commodities through the ration shops, the fair price shops. It is just to protect the consumers. And they may also bring in price control. That means they may fix the ceiling limit on the price. Maybe 30-40 years ago, this was very much prevalent. If I want to construct a house, this is the situation 30-40 years ago, not now. Okay, if I want to construct a house and I want to buy cement for construction of house, I had to get permission from the Tahsildar. Okay, I had to get the permission from the government official, the Tahsildar, and he would give me permission saying that you can purchase so many bags of cement. I cannot purchase more than that. And the maximum price, the seller, the trader can fix or can charge on each bag of cement was also fixed by the government. So that was price control. But it is not so anymore. Okay, now we can freely get cement, iron, and other things in the market. Okay, so consumer sovereignty is protected. Reduction of economic inequalities. So rich, how they try to control the inequality. Rich becoming richer and richer, poor remaining poorer and poorer. Okay, so this gap between rich and the poor is regulated, okay, is reduced through, in case of rich people, progressive taxation that we have seen in public revenue, the chapter on public revenue. As the income increases, the tax rate also increases. So progressive taxation. Wealth tax, we have seen this. Gift tax, yes. Poor, how the poor would be helped to narrow the gap between rich and poor, to reduce the gap between rich and poor. Poor are provided free education, free medical aid, old age pension, and so on. Okay, this is how the government tries to bridge the gap, reduce the gap between the rich and the poor in a mixed economy. So with this, I complete the chapter on economic systems. If you have any question, you may ask me. Otherwise, I'll move to the next chapter, that is the population theory. No questions. Okay. Then I'll move to next chapter on population theory. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So population theory. Okay. Why do we have to study the population theories? What is the importance? Okay. Importance is an economy supports population. The main purpose of having different types of economies, whether it is laissez-faire, whether it is capitalism, whether it is socialism or mixed economy, okay, the main purpose is to support the population, people of the country. And population too supports the economy. Without people working, without people contributing, so economy cannot develop. So there is interdependence, there is mutual dependence between the population and the economy. They go hand in hand. Aim of the economy is to supply goods and services to the people. And who should produce the goods and services? People make important contribution to the productive capacity of the economy. So with the help of contribution by the people, economy produces goods and services for the people. Okay. So there are two types of population theories. One is the Malthusian population theory, and the other one is the optimum theory of population. Malthusian population theory and optimum theory of population. Will look into each one of them. What is Malthusian population theory and what is the meaning of optimum theory of population and how they operate. Okay. So first, the Malthusian population theory. Thomas Robert Malthus. So the theory is named after the economist, okay, Robert Malthus, Thomas Robert Malthus. He wrote a book, Essay on Principle of Population, in 1798. How many years? 3 centuries ago? Okay, 2.5 centuries ago, or roughly 2 centuries ago, he wrote the book Essay on Principle of Population. What the theory says, according to Malthus, Thomas Robert Malthus. By nature, human food increases in a slow arithmetic progression. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 2, 4, 6, and so on. It is a slow arithmetic progression. Whereas the population increases in a quick geometric progression. It multiplies. Okay? 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and so on. It multiplies. Food production increases but slowly. Population increases much quickly. Okay, that is Malthusian population theory, unless want and vice stopping. Okay, so this will happen unless population wants to curb the rate of growth in population. If the population wants to reduce the rate at which the population increases, and vice, that is something which is bad. The bad habits stop man from increasing the population in a geometric progression. Unless these two, want and vice, stop him, this is what is going to happen. That means the population quickly overtakes the growth in food production. Okay, so there'll be starvation. That's what Malthus says. So geometric rate, okay, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, etc., that is increasing population. And arithmetic rate, okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on, it is a bit slowly. That is the growth in food production. Now, there is a damaging statement by Malthus. What he says is, a couple can increase to the size of the present population in 1,750 years. And he says, men multiply like mice in a barn. Now, what do you mean by that? A couple, suppose today the earth is empty of human race. There are no humans on this planet, suppose, okay? And one couple, a husband and wife, start, okay, their progeny. They start producing children. One husband, one wife, a couple. If they start production today, within 1,750 years, the population will become around 7 billion people, 700 crore people. Okay, so fast they multiply, and he says men multiply like mice. Mice means what? Rats, illegal. Okay, the people will multiply, they'll produce children like rats in a barn. Barn is what? Your kottige. Okay, suppose yours is a farm family and you have a cattle shed where you keep the livestock, the animals, and also all the equipments, plows and other things, all the equipments and all additional material. That is a barn, like a storehouse. So usually in the farmhouse, in the barn, the storehouse, there'll be rats. Like rats multiply in a barn, similarly, people also multiply, and within 1,750 years, 2 persons will become 7 billion people. Okay, that's what he said. But this is with respect to population growth. But production of food is subject to law of diminishing marginal returns. You know law of diminishing marginal utility. As you go on consuming more and more units of the same commodity, the additional satisfaction you get goes on decreasing. That is law of diminishing marginal utility. Very similar to that, we have law of diminishing marginal returns. That means as you go on applying more and more units of a input, maybe fertilizer, maybe irrigation water, maybe seeds. Okay, so if you go on increasing the dosage of the input, keeping everything else constant. Okay, ceteris paribus, keeping everything else constant, then the increasing production, okay, 1 unit increase in production, the marginal returns, or the unit increase in income, marginal returns, it goes on decreasing. Very similar to your marginal utility. Marginal returns go on decreasing as you increase the application of input, a particular input to land. Okay, so in case of production of food, law of diminishing marginal returns operates. So the increase in food production becomes slower, slower, and slower. But the population growth will not slow down, it goes on multiplying. Okay. On the basis of these two premises, on these two assumptions, Malthus concluded that population tended to outstrip the food supply. So population growth will overtake the food supply or the growth in food supply. Okay. So what he says is preventive checks have to be followed to avoid this population growth becoming more than food production. Okay, we have to follow preventive checks. What are those preventive checks? Avoidance of marriage. He suggests to youngsters, young people, please don't get married. Okay, don't marry. Or if you have to marry, go for late marriage. Don't marry at the age of 20 years or 22 years. You marry at the age of 35 years or 40 years so that you produce less children. Okay, late marriage or less children per marriage. It has to be exercised. It has to be followed. If this is not done, okay, if preventive checks are not taken up, then what happens? Then positive checks will take over. What are the positive checks? War, famine, disease will operate. Okay, now we have the COVID pandemic. Okay, so these things will take over. Malthus recommended the use of preventive checks if mankind was to escape from the impending misery. ಈ ದುರಂತದಿಂದ ನಾವು ಬಚಾವ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ we have to follow preventive checks. If we have to come out of this misery of food production becoming less than population growth, then we have to follow the preventive checks, like not marrying at all. Even if you have to marry, go for late marriage, have less number of children, and so on. Okay, so modern economists have rejected the Malthusian theory of maximum population. Okay, so Malthusian theory is also referred to as theory of maximum population because he says it goes on increasing. Maximum population, which if exceeded will spell misery in the country. ಇಡೀ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ದುರಂತ ಸಂಭವಿಸುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ Malthus says, but modern economists say it will not happen. And we have seen that though the population explosion was there, Janasankhya Spota during the 1970s and 1980s, even though there was population explosion, Janasankhya Spota in India, people did not die because we could increase the food production. We could increase the productivity of all the crops. So modern economists, they don't agree with Malthus. Okay, they have substituted maximum population theory with the idea of optimum population. So they proposed optimum population theory instead of in place of maximum population theory. So now we have to look into the optimum population theory, what it means. So what is optimum theory of population? Or it is also referred to as modern theory of population. Sorry. Now, what is optimum population? When we say optimum population, okay, that optimum is relative to the resource availability. Okay, if you have to compare the growth in population and the resource availability, if the population growth is right, if it is optimum, if it is correct to exploit the resources available, then it is called as optimum population. ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಪನ್ಮೂಲಗಳು ಎಷ್ಟಿದಾವೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಳಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವಷ್ಟು ಜನಸಂಖ್ಯೆ ಇದ್ರೆ that is optimum population. Okay, so the best and the most desirable size of a country's population in relation to its resources. If the resource level is low, less, then less population. If the resource level is high, then the country can have more population. Okay, that's what it means, optimum population. What is that optimum number? Population size at which per capita income is the highest. Okay, the resources are optimally used. Resources are most profitably used, and the per capita income is the highest. That is optimum number of people in the country. What is underpopulation? Sorry. If we have optimum population, then we also have underpopulation and overpopulation. Underpopulation less than optimum population, overpopulation more than optimum population. Now, when we say underpopulation, population of a country is below the optimum. That is, the number of people is insufficient to make the fullest possible advantage of the natural and capital resources of the country. What it means is, the resources are more, people available in the economy in the country is less to best exploit the resources. Sorry. Say, for example, in Canada, the resource level is very high. The population is less. So the Canada government, it invites people from other countries to come and work there, contribute to the economic development of that country. Okay, so underpopulation. Under such conditions, when there is underpopulation, increase in population will result in increase in per capita income, because as the population increases, they will make best use of the resources available and the per capita income increases. So it leads to, when the population increases, it leads to specialization and increased productivity is possible. What is specialization? Say, for example, if it is agriculture, okay, one person, he specializes only in sowing. In the year, in 1 year, he doesn't do any other work than taking up sowing. And one person, he takes up only harvesting. And one person, he takes up only weeding. If this is the case, it is specialization. But in agriculture, specialization is not possible. Because if one person specializes in harvesting, he will get work only for about 1 month in a year. For the rest of 11 months, he has to keep idle. He has to remain idle. But in other sectors, market for goods, yes.
ಸರ್ ಒಂದ್ 5-6 ಜನ ಪುವರ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಇದಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಸರ್, ಎಕ್ಸಿಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಸರ್. ಅವ್ರು ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಬರ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅಲೋ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಸರ್?
ಖಂಡಿತ ಬರ್ಲಿ, ನೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. ಲೆಟ್ ದೆಮ್ ಜಾಯಿನ್, ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಪರ್ಮಿಟ್ ದೆಮ್.
Thank you.
Okay. So the market for goods expands. Large scale production is possible. Okay. You can produce in large scale. If the large scale production is possible, then cost of production comes down. As the production level increases, cost per unit decreases. So the goods become cheaper. Okay. Large scale production is possible. So when shortage of manpower is made up by increasing the population, the per capita income will reach the maximum, the economy reaches optimum. Then overpopulation. Okay. The resources will not be sufficient to provide gainful employment to the entire workforce. That means the resource level is less compared to the population level. Sorry. The resource level is less, population level is more, so resources will not be sufficient to provide gainful, profitable employment to the entire workforce. This situation occurs when the population goes on increasing and the optimum is exceeded. Okay? Productivity declines when there is overpopulation. Per unit of labor output per unit of labor goes on decreasing. Marginal productivity, that is additional productivity for every additional unit of labor, will become almost zero or zero itself. Did you get this point? Marginal productivity, law of diminishing marginal returns. Okay, as you use more and more, as you apply more and more units of the input, the additional output or additional returns you get, additional income you get goes on decreasing. And when there is overpopulation, this marginal productivity will become almost zero or equal to zero. So, Gavi Siddesh, let them join. I'll permit them. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Then there would be disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment, I think I have explained this earlier. Disguised means you seem to be working, but your contribution is zero. Your contribution is nil. I think I had given the example of some educated youth. Okay, they're waiting for a government job, but till they get the job, they say they'll be working on the farm, but their contribution is almost zero. They just go around the farm in the morning and they'll go to the nearby town, spend time with friends and come back. And if anybody asks them what you are doing, they'll say, I am in agriculture, but their contribution is zero. That is disguised unemployment. A person seems to be working, but his contribution to output is zero. Okay, that is disguised unemployment. Open unemployment means a person doesn't get any work at all. All the 7 days a week, he keeps idle. He remains idle because he doesn't get any work. Open unemployment. It is possible in case of overpopulation. Per capita income diminishes. Okay, so when that is the situation, per capita, per head income will be less. It goes on decreasing. So standard of living falls. Okay, so they cannot maintain the same standard of living which they had earlier. ಮೊದಲು ಜೀವನದ ಮಟ್ಟ ಯಾವ ತರ ಇತ್ತು ಅದನ್ನೇ ಮುಂದುವರಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ because their income level comes down. Then there may be food problem also because your population is more, productivity is less. Okay, it may lead to food problem. So this is the graphic representation of optimum population theory. This is output per capita. This is the returns per head. And here it is the size of the population. So earlier there would be underpopulation. Okay, population is less compared to the resource availability. As the population increases, they reach a stage where the population is optimum. That means the population matches the resource availability. Then beyond that, as the population size increases, the availability of resource per head goes on decreasing. So there is overpopulation and it leads to misery later on. What are the natural determinants of population change? Okay, I'll continue for another 5 minutes and then I'll give 5 minutes for question and answer. Okay, what are all the natural determinants of population change? How the nature affects the population change. One, the fertility rate, that is the childbearing ability. Okay, in the tropical countries, in India, the childbearing ability, the fertility rate is high. In the European countries, the fertility rate, the childbearing ability is less. Okay, it affects the population change. Then age structure of population. If the population having larger proportion of old people, then the population increase will slow down. If the population in the country is much younger, then the population change will be faster. Okay. Mortality rate. Mortality rate is the death rate. Okay. So children or even the adults, okay, if they die at the age of 40 years, 50 years, then the population will be less. If the mortality rate is less, okay, if the mortality rate is high, then the population size will be lesser. And if the mortality rate is low, then higher population. Then life expectancy. Earlier, when we got the independence, the average life expectancy for how many years on an average a person in the country lives, whether a person lives for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, okay, that is the life expectancy. In India, it was low, 40 years or 50 years, the life expectancy. But today, it has crossed 60 years or 70 years. Okay, so people these days live for more years because of advancement in development in medical science. Okay, life expectancy has increased. When the life expectancy increases, the population growth will be high. Then rates of in and out migration. How many people from India they migrate to other countries, and how many people from other countries they migrate to India. In India at present it is only with respect to Bangladesh. Otherwise in European countries, a lot of people from Middle East, okay, they are migrating to European countries. Okay, when people from other countries they migrate to European countries, the population level in European countries will increase. So rates of in and out migration. If in migration is more, then population increases. If out migration is more, then the population decreases. Then the socio-economic determinants of population growth. Okay. Earlier, what we discussed was the natural factors. Now we are talking about socio-economic factors which affect the population growth. One is economic development stage of the country. Okay, if the country is developed, then the productivity, population growth will be less. If the country is underdeveloped, then the population growth will be more. Poor countries, because of child mortality rate would be high, because less than 5-year-old children, a lot of such children, they die. at very young age, 4 years, 3 years, 5 years, 1 year, and so on, okay, child mortality rate would be high. So parents tend to have more children because of the risk of mortality. What is the guarantee that the child I have born will live for 30 years or 40 years? So it is very difficult to guess. So people try to have more number of children. If one dies, then we have the other one. Okay. So economic development stage. Poor parents, they tend to have more children as an insurance for their old age. Okay. For the old age. In European countries, for example, old people are taken care by the government, but the income tax rate will be high. Okay, in say for example, Belgium, 49% is the income tax rate. That means if you're earning 100 rupees in a month, you have to pay 49 rupees to the government. But the government will take care of you when you are old. Okay, it will totally take care of you. So poor parents in less developed countries, they tend to have more children because they want somebody to take care of them when they become old, because the government doesn't take care of them when they become old. Okay, so I think I'll stop here and I'll invite questions. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, I'll continue for another 2 to 3 minutes and complete this section of population theory, socio-economic determinants of population growth. ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ನಿದ್ದೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ? Or you're listening, or you have gone to sleep?
No, sir, listen.
Okay, Santosh. Okay, good. Since there are no questions, I'll continue with this for another 3 minutes. Okay, state pensions or welfare payments. Okay, parents do not have to depend on children in old age. If the government provides pension for the old people, then they don't have to depend on the children when they become old. That is another way is welfare payment. That is for the old people. Okay, if the government takes care of them when they become old, then their dependence on children will be less, and they'll tend to have less number of children. So less number of children. Then social and cultural factors. Okay, social and cultural factors. In India and China, there are strong social attachments. Okay, so that bandhavya between the family members is very strong in India. Okay, the relationship between among the cousins, among the brothers and sisters, uncles and aunties, it is very close, very strong in India and China. So they tend to have large families. Okay, then female labor market participation. That means if the women start working, then the population growth will be lesser. Why? If women have more education, they give first preference to work rather than starting a family. Okay, earlier parents used to get their daughters married at the age of 14 years, 15 years, 16 years, and so on. But as more and more girls, they become educated, the marriage age is also getting delayed. Okay, now even 25, 26 years, 28 years is also okay for the women to get married. If women have more education, they give first preference to work rather than starting a family. So there'll be late marriage and less children. Then industrialization. Okay, so higher the industrialization, lesser will be the population growth. Germany, zero growth population. Population growth in Germany is almost zero. France, it is 1% growth. India, it was 1.15% in 2016. And within India, the high income group, they had a population growth rate of only 0.6%. Okay. Middle income group, 1.13%, and low income group, 2.71% in India. So the average came down to 1.1%, 1.15% in 2016. China, in 2016, it was only 0.54%, average for the entire country. This is the average for the entire country. In India, 1.15%, but in China, it was only 0.54%. USA, 0.69%, Afghanistan, 2.69%, Bangladesh, 1.08%, Japan, 0.12%, and Nepal, 1.13%. So, sixth one is the source of entertainment. If entertainment is more, so in the evening up to 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, the husband and wife, they are immersed in TV shows, they'll be watching TV shows, the population growth will be less. They will have less number of children. Okay, source of entertainment also affects the population growth rate. I think I'll stop here.
Thank you.
Chat box. So my grandfather used to say, who has written Biregowda, sir, my grandfather used to say earlier life expectancy was more compared to now, but even though now there is an advancement in medical, people will die at lower age. No, life expectancy is higher. We are not talking about the individuals, but the average of the entire country. When we consider that life expectancy was lower earlier, but it is higher now. In the recent history. In the recent history. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, then. Okay, bye. Take care of yourselves.
Bye, sir.
Thank you,
You
sir.
too, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Jopanwagirri.
Thank you, sir.
Namaskara. Namaskara.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.